Yeah.
What up, what up, what up? What's good? Welcome to Hip Hop and Theology, a podcast expressing God, the OG of hip hop.
In the time that we're living, not one of the most, we're in the crossroads. And although people face it many times, this is a totally different shift. I think the song "The Crossroads" by Bone Thugs and Harmony is really important for us to talk about today.
Definitely.
And for me, we'll start right from the beginning.
All right.
Right from the beginning.
What do you got?
The first line is, "You're in the crossroads and there ain't nowhere to run." Not only there's nowhere to run, there's nowhere to run when judgment comes for you. There's nowhere to hide when judgment comes for you. There's nowhere to hide when you're in the crossroads. So what you gonna do? So for me, it's so theological in so many ways. Start with me, right? And try not to get too personal because I don't know who's listening. Or somebody might be listening and I don't want to say too much. But in my life, think about being stabbed by, somebody love, care about. Think about being kicked out of your home by your parents because you had sex. Think about crossroads being sick, like your health, a huge issue, and the crossroads, thinking about the conflicts I've had with my faith, conflicts I continue to have as a Christian since I'm Christian. I mean, and that's just a little bit, and you bring coronavirus, this pandemic, the loneliness that everybody feels. The song gets into it, right? Like, I don't know. You start from the beginning. That's all I can say.
Yeah, I hear you. Go. You have any thoughts on that piece?
This just the title, Crossroads, to me, it's the first thing that comes to mind is an intersection. And I think when you look at where two roads cross, you would assume that there's four things you can do. Keep going, cross over the intersection, keep going in the direction you're going, turn back, go back where you came from, make a left or make a right. But what stuck out to me is that at a crossroads, you can actually just stand right in the middle and kind of either refuse to make a decision, which is a decision in and of itself, and kind of like let things happen to you as opposed to you choosing something. And that crossroads is kind of like where I saw myself before I got into seminary. I was at a point like, okay, well, do I keep doing what I've been doing all these years? Do I go forward with this calling, if you will? Do I make a left and become more liberal in my faith and kind of like just let the faith just do what it does? Do I make a right and become like a scholar? Or do I turn back and just like, you know what, F this, like, I don't want this? Or do I just stand still and just kind of like, it's, and then when you read the part, when judgment comes for you, that part is something like, okay, well, no, you got to make a decision. Because when judgment comes, what side of judgment do you want to be on? Do you want to be, is it that, okay, well, when I called you, you did nothing, when you know the saying, to the least of these. So if you saw the poor and you didn't help them, if you saw the hungry, you didn't do anything,
That's right.
you got to answer. And it's similar to what, when you get a calling on your life, what do you do? So it's, this song was hugely prophetic. It's just, it all depends on how you choose to apply it, if you apply it. But I think there's a lot of deep-seated meanings and innuendo in this song, and just it's hugely prophetic.
Yeah, I agree. I kind of saw the crossroads as like this liminal space, sacred space, if you would. This space of like transformation, right? Like you're saying, that's how I picture it. Like you're in this intersection where you just have to decide, do you take it or do you leave it? Do you choose to embrace it or do you ignore it? And I kind of feel like as a people right now, we're kind of in that kind of liminal space where we're transforming so rapidly. Reality is changing for us because of COVID and the pandemic and people dying. I can't help but feel like we're in eschatology time, like an eschatology season or period of time where it's an end of something, but a start of something new, So yeah, the crossroads, talking about this, it seems like as a people, we are in some way all at a crossroads. Like, what are we deciding, So I like how you said that.
Can we jump into Busy Bone? I got some Busy Bone.
Let's do it.
That first stanza, Busy Bone, like, it's not in the first sentence, but this kind of talks about destiny, right? And how you feel. I mean, different people view different things about destiny, or some people think no matter what, it's preordained. I don't think that. I think, we get to make choices. But that line, destiny played too deep for me to say, but specifically, I think he kind of turns that around in the line before when he's talking about Eazy-E, where it said, looked at him while he laid and prayed. So while Eazy-E was going through all his sickness, when he was about to die, all the faith, all the goodness, all the destiny, no matter how anybody looked at him, right, was already inside of him coming out. Even if judgment had come for him and said, Eazy-E with everything that was happening back then, how white people were coming for him, how the government, like all that, like they were, back then, what was it? Rap was
vilified.
Exactly. It was vilified, and specifically
gangster
rap, right? Because all it was trying to do, what we heard white people say, trying to make you rape women, kill people, all this other stuff. Yet and still, with what everybody was saying was his destiny, all that his parents had put inside him, all the stuff that he had learned himself, no matter how he said it, was inside him for the good. I think that's in the liminal space or at the crossroads. That's something we can't forget, and the end of what Busy Bone was saying, I don't know if you guys want to jump in before then, but when Busy Bone was like, and when you can, come and follow me, right away that brings me to Jesus or Yeshua, however, like, come and follow me, and the destiny I have for you is a more liberating destiny, a better, I wouldn't say an easier journey, but a lighter load is what the Bible would say than what you carried.
I'm not sure if I agree with destiny. I've always had a problem with fate, destiny, because we have because we have choice, that word destiny always kind of rubs me a particular way. I don't want to say it rubs me wrong, but it just makes me, it makes it sound as though you have no control. And I think we have a lot more control than we actually know. Mm. And then people always say, the argument is always, okay, well, if you choose to do this, it was just your destiny. And I said, no, that's just, to me, that's just what I call explanationism. It's kind of like, okay, well, because you can't prove anything one way or the other, you kind of just say, oh, okay, well, that was just meant to be. No, I made this choice. Mm-hmm. And although I don't know what the outcome is going to be, I do know what I don't want. And knowing what I don't want is not exactly the same as knowing what you do want, but having a definitive say in terms of what it is you want for yourself cannot be destiny. Because if you are faced with, well, for one, you never just have one choice. At a minimum, you always have two choices, either to do something or not to do something. Mm-hmm. So there's always a choice. And because you have at least two choices available, it kind of takes destiny out of it. Destiny to me is when you have no choice at all and something has to happen to you. That's how I look at it. But when I'm reading through this through Busy Bones part, I get everything. It's just the destiny part. I get the whole, gangster rap back then being vilified and all that, but it makes me feel as though the people who felt that rap would influence people to the point where they would go out and rape women and beat people and shoot people and all that kind of stuff, those are the same people who believe in QAnon today. Like their parents vilified rap back then, so now they grow up believing in QAnon, believing in such far-fetched conspiracy theories that they can only come from a lineage of odd belief. No, that's how I look at it, because if you can believe something so far-fetched without a shred of proof, then you can believe that listening to this music is going to make you go outside and sell drugs. Mm. So I'm going to leave my house and just weed is going to miraculously appear in my hand. I'm just going to find a corner, sag my pants, start wearing Timbs and, drive a lowrider. Like, I don't understand. Like, how does one get to the other? And again, but those are a series of poor, but choices nonetheless, which again takes destiny out of it. Because you can't tell me all of those years I was doing whatever I was doing, I was destined to go to seminary. Just kind of, and it's still art. So I can't necessarily say, it has to be, it has to make 100% sense. But
no, but your argument is sound. I mean, it's coming from a theological standpoint. So, I mean, I get it too. Like, us going through seminary, we do have to question ourselves. Is destiny something, that is real to us? Is it something that we believe or follow? Or do we also believe that we take control through choices? It's interesting because, I think of like how Bone Thugs is coming out of a program space, right? They're coming from the ghetto, right? This idea of a ghetto was established and created to contain us, to create something, make us into something, right? That they can control. Less education, manipulated information, low budget programs, things of that nature, like just to develop us into a sort of people. And we start with that, we start thinking a certain kind of way. So it really raises interest for me. In this song, Bone Thugs and Harmony, are they also giving away their context in time and history of how people were understanding end time or their lives, from the hood, Like, what was the normal, or not the normal, let me take that back. What was the average, thought on what's going to happen when we die? And it seems like Crossroads was the best example that they could provide. I'll meet you at the crossroads, like even in the song, he says it's nothing they can do but just cry, like this vulnerable stance, saying there's nothing I can do, nothing at all that's going to change any of this. All I can do is cry. All I can be is in the moment and just be with those who are weeping for their lost ones. Because even as a thug, you know what I mean? And I feel like they're trying to make a claim here, like, a thug could be as hard as they can be in the streets, a warrior in their own right. But at the end of the day, your strength and your manhood and your masculinity and your power does not stop this. You could sit there and be bench pressing it with the homies all day. This is not going to stop that bullet. So like it also theologically, allows us to humble ourselves and say, this thing called death is coming for us all, and how it's coming for us right now through this song is brutal. It's out of their control, right? And it's like, damn, what do I do? Just cry for my homie, I'll see you soon, man. Like, so you kind of get that feeling of like, I don't know, they're hurt.
I think they're also resigned. With respect to what I said earlier about destiny, I think the only way, in my opinion, that destiny applies here is that we all will get to that crossroads. That no matter who you are, you can't avoid that crossroads.
The inevitable point, right?
If destiny has any application here, it's just that whether you die from AIDS, from a bullet, from a car accident, from whatever, your old age, with the reference to grand, we're all gonna get to that crossroads, before we are taken up, we'll all reach that crossroads. So that's I guess, because my definition of destiny has always been similar to my definition of happiness, right? Happiness is not a place you get to. It's something that you work toward. It's something that you're working on and toward in a progressive sense. So I think at the end of your life, you can look back and see if you were happy. Because again, it's not a destination, because technically if you get there, you want to stay there, but you can't. So it's a constant, like in football, they're constantly moving the flag. So destiny is something like when someone passes on, someone can look back on your life and say, okay, well, because you ended up here, and they trace back all the steps prior to you getting there, they can say, oh, he was destined. So at stage 5, he was destined to get to stage 10 because they see the end. But destiny, when you're only at stage 5, you don't know where the end is, and you don't know at what stage you're going to end. So destiny doesn't apply. It's something that they can look back on and say, oh, I saw Joel preaching at age 7. He was destined to be a good minister. I saw Aaron, ministering at age 10. He was destined to do big things. But they'll only know that when you reach the crossroads.
Hindsight is
that's true.
That's exactly, yeah.
I think what both of you said, though, leads to the next verse. All the talk of not so much destiny, but the hardship and stuff like that. The next verse, for me, is like a real place of hope. When Lazy Bone starts, and despite all the stress, the hardship, the struggles, death, pain, all these things, he talks about 24/7 working on a plan to heaven, right? And God is who we praise. Now, it doesn't matter what tradition, religiously here, but for me, it's just like, despite all the burdens thrown upon me by patriarchy, by colonization, by the economic system in which we struggle to live, I still have a hope. And here it is that I'm outlining on a daily basis, trying to live out, trying to work out. And when he goes, talking about this is something he's praying about, right? He says grace to the gates we race, right? Despite no mercy for thugs, nothing like that, I still have this hope laid out before me. And I mean, that's the epitome of eschatology, right? That's the epitome of any way you look. Like we were talking about it before. We talked about whether you're Christian, Jewish, of the Muslim tradition, there is some eschatological base that you're looking for. We're all looking at it differently, but we're all looking to this place of hope and peace.
Yeah, I dig it. I like that. The hope.
Lazy Bone strikes me as having resigned his situation on earth, or having been resigned to his situation on earth, and kind of, I don't want to say so much looking forward to heaven per se, but has an understanding that there is a better place. Because the line, grudge because there's no mercy for thugs, like I read into that so deeply in the sense that, well, from the perspective of the criminal justice system, not even just, like getting sentenced, but like whether you commit a crime or not, the police already have it in for you. Mm-hmm. So you're not going to succeed on this earth at all because you've been labeled a thug. Whether the reference is to whatever he may or may not have done physically on earth, or if it's just a reference to the name of the group, but the way I'm looking at it for what society labels a thug, if that is what he's referencing, then definitely there are no wins, there are no W's in that column, but he knows that there's the possibility, or there's the promise of a W at the crossroads. So when you mention, God bless you working on a plan to heaven, follow the Lord all 24/7 days, God is who we praise. So, there is a theological application obvious in the verse. It's just without a chance to face the judge, then I guess my soul won't budge. So it's kind of like, if I can't plead my case, then F you, I'm gonna do what I need to do because you're not gonna give me any mercy. So I'll just have my way, do what I can down here for as long as I can, which probably won't be a long time, but knowing that, later on, if my plan to get to heaven is working out, I'll see all my homies at the crossroads before we, make that transition.
Yeah, I love that. Let me ask you something. Do you think the crossroads is a place before arriving to heaven, like a rally point? And for the sake of argument, of course, just in this context, like the thugs are all meeting up before going through like the pearly gates, so to speak. Or do you think that, the crossroads is beyond that?
I'll jump in. I think crossroads are continual. And I think I said that at the beginning, right? Like, how many crossroads have you faced in your life, Aaron? And crossroads good and bad. Crossroads when I had my son. Crossroads when I had my daughter, when I got married, when I got divorced, when I got married again, when I bought the first car that I ever had in my life. All these are crossroads. Meeting friends that I haven't seen in a long time, just like chilling.
I think I have a slightly different interpretation. I think I look at I see these crossroads as, not to take away from your point, but I look at those situations more as intersections as opposed to crossroads, if that makes any sense. I think the implication of a crossroad to me is something that that I truly have no I don't want to say no say so, but I guess maybe the implication is different. Even with reference to the video, it's almost as if the people who have passed on almost had an opportunity to come back, but they chose to keep going. Because I think in my artistic mind's eye, it's kind of like, okay, well, you're living in hell down here. You don't have any choices. You don't have any ability to succeed. Everything is against you. So now let's say you are shot, and let's say you're on the verge of death. Do you fight to stay here? Or do you say, you know something? I'm good. I'm not going back here. Let me just go on and wait for the Lord to take me wherever he's going to take me. And I look at that crossroads, because when you looked at the video, I get it. It was almost as if the spirit is hovering above the body and hasn't quite left yet, and they can make the left and come back and fight, or just like, old things have passed away. Let me just leave that. Like, there's nothing down here for me.
You have no reason to fight no more.
There's nothing for me down here.
Yeah.
I can't win. I can't succeed. But you know something? You know, there's a promise for a better tomorrow, as opposed to like the decisions we make to get divorced, get remarried, so on and so on. And although those are crossroads in and of themselves, I just think with respect to this, with respect to eschatology, it's as if you had the choice to go on to be with the Lord or stay down here. Who's choosing to stay down here? None of us are. Black and brown people ain't choosing to stay down here.
Yeah, that's a good point. Another point in the song towards the end that really stuck out to me was, can anybody tell me why? Hey, can anybody tell me why we die? We die. I don't want to die. You know, like it's really powerful to me because, you know, here you have these young men, thugs, if you will, in their own right, and they're afraid to die. You know, like this is something that we really don't resonate with a lot. Like as humans, we're always afraid to die, right? And it's something we share, like it's just an unknown. But what's crazy is a little bit later, you know, they're talking about, I'll see you at the crossroads so you won't be lonely. You know, so you know, we're talking about hope, but then you guys are just now talking about there's nothing left for me, and they keep going. So these guys think that they're just hanging around and they're lonely, you know, and they don't want them to feel lonely, like as if you're in a different space and we're still here, you know. So I guess what do you think? I'm thinking that's like really hopeful. Like they're just saying, you know, don't worry, we're going to be reunited again. Or do you take a different take on that?
I don't care how much of a thug you are, how much of a gangbanger or whatever. Everybody wants family. Everybody wants to belong. Everybody wants to be a part of something. So I think gangs spring out of that whole not having a family unit or not having a cohesive family unit. So in place of your family, you join a gang, you become a gangbanger, you do all this stuff because they do look out for one another. So there is a structure. You usually have somebody who's the leader, blah, blah, blah. You know, you have your captains and however they divvy out the assignments and responsibility. But the point is, as those who you look up to, like even in the case of Eazy-E, as these bigger people in your life start passing away, you do realize that, okay, well, I'm not going to be here forever, right? And what more does a son want than to be with his dad or his uncle or somebody, who his elder male who he looks up to, right? So the more and more of your people who pass away, the lonelier you become, the lonelier you get. So whether you're a thug or a church boy, you still have that sense of wanting to belong either with someone, to someone, or to something. And when those things are stripped away, however way they're stripped away, whether violently or otherwise, like even with, the reference to grand, if it's just old age, there's still that wanting, that yearning, that needing to be part of something. So I think just being human, you want to be a part of something. Everybody, no man's an island. You want to be, and then the whole part about, can somebody tell me why we die? Death is the greatest unknown. So no matter how hard you are, don't tell me, oh, I'm willing to die. You don't know that because you haven't been faced with that, with that choice yet. And I'd be hard pressed to say, like, I've always told people, I don't necessarily have a fear of death, but I'm in no rush to get there. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? I like that. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah.
If I knew I had to go down the block to go and do something, and going down there was going to cause my death or lead to my death, I'm still going to go down there. I'm not going to run from it. Is my point. If this is how if something happens and I am made aware of how it is I'm going to go, I can't necessarily say I'm going to do anything to prevent it, because that just seems to me like this is how it's supposed to happen for me. But because it's the unknown, okay, this is just more of a semi-permanent unknown, because school was an unknown, marriage was an unknown, having kids was an unknown, buying this shirt was an unknown on a much lesser scale, but the greatest unknown is death. And I think that's why there are, that line, can anybody tell me why we die? But I think in not knowing why we die should give you more of a reason to live while you're here. That's how I look at it. So because I don't know what's around the corner, mm-hmm. and I know what's in front of me now, I'm going to make the best of what's in front of me now. Mm.
Yeah. I also saw that point where it's, talking about death, like, why do we die? I also saw it as like kind of like a very specific statement towards Black and brown people. Like, why are we dying? Why are we being killed? Kind of thing.
I think that leads back to like the verse above when he talked to Lazy Bone again, talk about we're living in a hateful world. And again, we're living in a hateful world, but it's sending me straight to heaven. So it's sending me to die, but it's sending me to a place of hope. Like, it leads back to the hope. At the end of it, he talks about, again, speaking to the good Lord about why he sighed and he told me to live to die. And I think this is something, the whole live to die thing, that is, again, a very theological kind of statement. I gotta say that I grew up in a church that kind of said, like, the greatest thing that could happen to you as a person of faith is if people ridicule you for your faith and people kill you for your faith. So being a martyr would be the greatest thing that could happen to you.
You know what I just connected this to? This stanza right here with Lazy Bone, this is the cross on a lynching tree in hip hop form.
Wow.
Okay. And I'm asking the good Lord why. He sighed. He told me we live to die. This is Christ on the cross, and he took his last breath.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Living in a hateful world, sending me straight to heaven. James Cone makes that connection with black and brown people being lynched and being killed, right? And the connection is, okay, well, he's relating Christ on the cross to black and brown people being lynched today. This whole section here is, this is James Cone to me, right here in hip hop.
That's dope.
Straight to heaven. So that's a direct link between the thugs who fought against the empire, similar to the Christ on the cross who fought against empire, dying, going straight to heaven. Christ died straight to heaven. But before he died, that last breath, he sighed. He sighed. He told me live to die. He told me that we live to die.
I want to go back since you brought that up, right? I'm sorry, Aaron. When we go further back up to Crazy Boat, talk about whether it's to hell or heaven, right? It says, now follow me, roll stroll, whether it's to hell or it's to heaven. I understand when you talk about heaven, but I also like that part about to hell. Jesus didn't actually go straight to heaven. If you go in the Bible, he died and he went to hell, depending on which translation you read, and then was raised up. So he descended into hell and then was able to be taken up to a place of hope and peace. So that's even more like James Cone for me.
But
deep.
But this also shows vulnerability though for thugs, because now follow me, roll show, whether it's hell or it's heaven. Mm-hmm. So if my homie's already at the crossroads and I don't know where he went, so if I'm a believer, I will believe he went to heaven. But if I'm not a believer, or if he wasn't a believer, maybe he went to hell. But it's saying, now follow me, roll stroke. So I'm going to follow you because we're homies, whether you went upstairs or downstairs. This just shows the faith that they had in each other as brothers.
Yeah.
So you looked up for me while you was here. All right, cool. You went on. When it's my turn, I'm going to follow you, whether you went upstairs or you went downstairs, because we live the same life. So I get it, but I also see the implication with Ephesians here that you put up.
Yeah, that's brilliant. That's brilliant. You guys made me think of I've been reading for the last 2 years in and out this book called The First Followers of Jesus. And I've been really trying to understand what it means to be a follower, right? Of, the early first century movement, the way, and like what they had to do to actually follow Jesus. You know what I'm saying? Like, I try to imagine what it would be like, separating from your family, separating from community. It's like going against everything that was normalized for this new radical way of thinking and living, right? And where did that end? Where did Jesus end up? Jesus wasn't putting pitchforks and rocks in people's hands, but yet the way he was liberating people's lives was just so detrimentally a threat to the empire. It makes you think about these thugs. They're a threat to the empire as well. To say to live to die is so powerful, right? There's so much in between that's not talked about or said in that sentence. Like, to live to die, like, what did I do living to cause me to die? What did Jesus do living that caused him to be killed?
Well, I think that's an easy question to answer for me. He made people think, and this is what I mean by that. I relate that also to why Biggie had to be shot and killed, why Tupac had to be shot and killed, because the thought that they inspired in people who had been written off was a threat to empire. So when you have hip hop artists, when you have any artist really who can inspire people to think outside of their appointed role or designated role in society. It's a threat to those who created those appointed roles in society. You follow what I'm saying? So let's say a Biggie or a Tupac wanted to become political. See, Jay-Z is as big as he is because he's not political. They're only tolerating LeBron right now as big as he is because he's still bringing in money. But the more political he becomes, the less liked he will be. You follow what I'm saying? So at the time, Biggie and Tupac truly didn't know how much power they had. But I think as Empire recognized how much power they could garnish, you know what? Let's deal with them now as opposed to waiting until they become a true problem. Which is why when you hear stuff about Illuminati and so and so and so, there is some truth to it. Because you cannot tell me that a lot of these Black and brown people who have power and influence and finance cannot get together to cause impactful change. They choose not to cause that impactful change because they understand they won't be around. To quote Craig Mack, they won't be around next year. You know, so they know their place. They're allowed to get as big as they can get as long as they play by certain rules. But the minute Jay-Z decides, you know, let me go to Brooklyn and do a get out the vote drive. Nah. You know?
So then the question comes up then, what were thugs doing that caused them to die?
Again, I think people reproduce at greater rates on the lower end of the financial structure. So there's always going to be a lot more poor people than rich people, because the rich people are more about enjoying themselves than truly procreating and, you know, and just having large families. So that being the case, there's more of them to kill, for one, and there's less of them to demand power and demand influence to cause the killing to slow down or stop. You follow? And when you have a bunch of people in a tight area, eventually there's going to be some kind of crime. There's going to be a problem. And that just feeds the cycle. Now you need police and structure. Now you need more police and structure because you know the whole cycle. So I understand how and why it happens. I just feel as though when you have people who are insightful and can either harness that power of that underserved population, they become not just problematic, but they become a serious threat to the empire.